Hi, welcome back to Wallflowers. It's been a funny old day. I managed to have a really good lie-in today, which is quite unusual for me, and didn't actually get out of bed till about 10:30. Came down, made myself a coffee, and it was already really warm here. So I just sat and browsed through my Facebook and all my social media, and I took a look at the memories, and one memory in particular it's kind of set the tone for the day, this one memory, and it triggered several memories and several thoughts for the day. So I'll just read you, excuse me, just pop my coffee down. I'll just read you what the memory was. Just bear with me. So this is the 12th of June 2020. So it says, well, we've had a day out to Wigan today. Had a quick stop at Bargain Brands and then off to B&Q. We decided it was time to buy a new letterbox and a new bathroom door handle. So we took snacks to eat in the queue at B&Q. So bearing in mind this was 3 years ago, we had to wait outside shops for an hour, 2 hours, maybe longer, and go in one by one because of the big C19 thing going on. And it took forever getting into a shop, so I took snacks for us and drinks while we were in the queue. So took snacks to eat in the queue at B&Q. There was a lady in front of us and she had 3 spaces between her and the guy in front of her. So I politely pointed out she could move up as a 6-metre gap wasn't needed. She snapped at me and she told me she was vulnerable. Beats me why she was waiting in a B&Q queue, excuse me, if she was so vulnerable. Knowing there'd be hordes of people there, knowing it'd be a long time waiting for her turn to go in. If she was so vulnerable, why did she put herself in that position? So she put hand sanitizer on 3 times in the queue in 15 minutes. I observed her. When she got to the front of the queue and she got a trolley, she sanitised it and then placed tissue on the handle of the trolley and then finally went in. It amused me. Anyway, we got what we needed and we came home. Unfortunately, the letterbox was too small, the handle was upside down. It was one of those days, I suppose. Hopefully the evening turns out better. So that was the whole of my memory for the 12th of June 2020. Now, as I'm saying, there were queues, we had to pace ourselves and the queues were marked for individual spaces, so everyone was separate. Lots of people were continually putting on hand sanitizer, wearing face masks, some were wearing double and triple, some were wearing visors over the top of a face mask. You know, it was... I can't think of the word, imposed upon us. You know, it was a life or death situation and we had to do all these things, you know. But we could go in a restaurant and if we sat down, the disease wouldn't catch us because we could play off ground tick and say, oh no, I'm sitting down, I'm eating, you can't get me. You know, it was quite bizarre what people accepted and what they didn't accept. You know, they could sit outside with dividers between them and eat and this disease wouldn't catch them, you know, because they were sat down. So it was off ground tick, you know, barley, I'm sitting down eating food, you can't catch me. And it was quite bizarre the level to which people demanded that they were right because this information had been ingrained into them. Looking back now, you know, no one's using hand sanitizer. Well, very, very rare, unless those that did it already or quite paranoid. But, you know, you don't see anybody at the front of the shop asking you to sanitize your hands before you enter a shop. You know, barely anyone's wearing a mask. I did research on Google today how many people were buying the tests. And it said, you know, few people are buying them, but they're no longer needed. It's not a requirement. People don't feel the need to test at every second. You know, people have a slight cough, change of weather, you know, they think, oh my gosh, I best check for the C19 thing. People are tap their toe on a table and think, oh, I best check for the C19. You know, it didn't matter how bizarre, there was always a connection there. I must check for this, I must check for this, you know. I hope this is all joining up and making sense, because my thoughts are just flittering everywhere today of how bizarre it was. Mr. Wallflowers and I didn't wear any masks. We were, you know, self-exempt. We didn't partake of the jab. We didn't play the game, as it were. But lots of people around us did. Lined up and had the thing, you know, 2, possibly 3 times, and each time were taken severely ill, taken to the bed for a week or 2, and then we're okay. A lot of people weren't that fortunate, you know. And the same friends that I have that went through that process 2 and 3 times are now looking back and saying, well, why did I make myself ill doing that, and I'd never do that again. And it's a total turnaround, you know, and they're actually looking back now and saying, well, I don't understand why I did that and why I was so ill each time. And if them circumstances came up again and I was told I'm best doing that, I'm not going to do it, because it's not in my self-interest. But at the time, those people that were partaking would actually argue and argue if you dare to say, well, I'm not doing it. You know, you're not. I didn't tell anyone for them not to do it. I didn't tell anyone, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That's not my place. You're an adult, you make your own choices. But lots of people were telling me I was wrong and I should have done it, and I'm a hazard to society, and I'm this, that and the other, you know, and I should be wearing the mask, and I should do this, that and the other. And it was so bizarre at the time. You know, we were told on the news there would be bodies in the street, there would be absolute chaos and this, that and the other. We never saw anything like that at all. It was the opposite. We saw more sickness from the people that had that than we did for the people who actually got the sickness supposedly naturally. Crazy. So I sat there this morning having my coffee, reading memories through, and I'd say that one triggered me, and you know, it really made me think about different situations. And a friend visited this afternoon, and he started talking about it first, and he started saying he was in a shop, and it just so happens this guy feels exactly the same way I feel. I won't say his name, but if you're listening, hon, you know it's you. And he was in a shop and he didn't have a mask on, and there was a gentleman behind him, and he was basically all wrapped up, you know, head to toe with a mask on, excuse me. And he'd actually approached my friend and he started poking him in the chest, and he started being really aggressive and abusive, and he was saying, people like you that are carrying this disease, this, that and the other, and you're a hazard to society, and you're making people sick and all that. And our friend just looked like, you know, and he observed like the cameras and his behaviour and how he was reacting to this guy, and he thought, well, you're not provoking me into making me look like, you know, the aggressor here. It's blatantly clear who's the aggressor here, and it's you. And he said to the guy, you've got no right to touch me and approach me with such a manner. And he just kept himself calm and cool and collected. And this guy was really aggressive, and when he went to the till and checked out with all this stuff, he was ranting and raving to the checkout girl and pointing and screaming and shouting about our friends. And, you know, the girl at the checkout was really taken aback, like, and she was quite intimidated. And she couldn't apologise enough to our friends, and said, you know, we don't often see this in the shop, you know, it's quite strange for it to happen and that. And he just brushed it off and took it as madness in society, which we sometimes get crazy folk behave crazily, you know. And he just come out with that story today, and I was thinking, yeah, there was so many different incidents, you know. If you were in a queue and it was marked out and you happened to step over that because you weren't taking heed or noticing, or you happened to be talking to someone at the time, someone would actually tell you, oh, get back into your space, you know, yeah, you have to stand back. Very, very 1984, very 1984. And I just happened to be looking at a clip before, a video clip of the film 1984. And it showed the part where the guy was trying to explain to the people about how the setup, you know, the control, ultimate control of everybody was completely wrong. And they were all doing the signal to him, you know, to oppose what he was saying, because they were rejecting, just like when people like myself, my friend, my husband, wouldn't wear masks, you know, people would be instilling into us, we should be wearing masks, we should be doing this. Well, in the 1984 film, they couldn't take that the situation was wrong, so they're actually doing the symbol to shield behind it, you know, to not accept what's being told. The instilled, the ingrained information had to stay there, so they were reenacting the image, you know, and doing it. It's so bizarre. It's like children being taught parafashion in school. You know, the media, the politicians, the drip, drip, drip on the news of, you should be doing this, you should be, you know, should be behaving like this, you should be getting this medical treatment, you should be wearing this mask, you should be standing 6 paces apart in a shopping area or any public space. You can't go out more than 2 people at a time. And all this drip, drip, drip. And it brainwashes people, you know. And looking back now, you know, we've got people rubbing elbows in shops, politely passing a basket to a person behind them. You know, no care in the world, no checking temperatures every day, no having all these tests, no panicking because a person happens to cough because they've got a sore throat, you know. And, you know, the difference is, you know, some people still can't accept seasonal flus or seasonal whatever, you know, and they might still have the doubt in their mind because they're the ones that were brainwashed and convinced. But at that time, 3 years ago, if I said, oh, I've got a cough and a cold, I'd have been rushed to hospital thinking I was dying of this disease, you know, because people wouldn't have accepted seasonal flu or anything else that we've had since time immemorial, you know. It's just, you know, the people who make hand sanitizer and the people that make these masks and all the stuff that, you know, en masse every individual was supposedly wearing and using, half of them must be going out of business now, because that stuff is junking up charity shops, bargain basement stores, and giving out free left, right and centre because people won't pay any money for it now because there's no need for it now, you know. It's just, the contrast to then and now is just crazy. But the thing is, those people, the government, the media, or whatever it is, do as I say, not as I do, because behind the scenes they're all doing something completely different, you know. They're not following the rules that are instilling the sheeple to do, you know, the masses to do. They're doing something completely different because they knew it wasn't true in the first place, etc. That the mask should be worn, that this should be done, and 6 paces apart. I'm not saying people didn't get sick, because some people did get sick, but under what circumstances and what was the truth behind that theory is maybe a different concept, in my opinion. And now, you know, 3 years later, people aren't doing that stuff. But again, they've stopped thinking for themselves, and they're not looking at what's the next ingrained motivation, pattern fashion education, what's the next thing they're going to be told to do that they should abide by, and will then fight against it if someone else says it's wrong. Which will they hold their arms up and do this symbol to and call us or anybody else a conspiracy theorist or fight against, because they've been told and taught that they've got to now do this next step, whether it's the cashless society, whether it's you know, each individual communication between any consenting adult must be monitored, or your chip, or, you know, basically I can't go to a car boot sale or have a job done on my house and give a friend cash for doing that. You know, in the future, when all this cashless society is in, we'd have to do phone to phone and pay cash over the thing, you know, and every part of that would be traceable. It's just, people aren't thinking, you know, they're just going to go, they don't need to wear the mask on the mouth because their eyes are already masked. They're not seeing it, they're not hearing it, they're not feeling it, they're not questioning it, they're not looking. And it's, what are we going to stumble in next that will be so ingrained that people will fight to the death to protect it? Don't know. These are just my thoughts for today, but once I read that memory of the C19 thing and my visit to B&Q, we actually went back to B&Q today. We actually needed a board for the fire. And again, it was so different. You just walked in at your leisure, walked around at your leisure, touched everything, you know, no fear, no anything, you know, just walked around casually. And we walked out again, hot summer's day, absolutely beautiful. And the contrast, it just so happens it's on the same day 3 years later that we went to the same shop. And the contrast between the first visit 3 years ago and today's visit is unbelievable. But what will it be like next year with the cashless society and the imposed monitored contracts, the imposed monitored facial ID, everything going in the shops, you know? Who knows? We can guess, we can say this is our perception, but it's all happening in the background, you know? People aren't concentrating on it. People are looking at Philip Schofield, Nicola Sturgeon, you know, all these things that are being thrown at us to distract us, to keep the media spinning, you know, but they're not actually looking at the facts of what's going on. You know, they're not even using controlled opposition at the moment. I'm not hearing anything about all these, you know, whether it be Extinction Rebellion or all these so-called controlled opposition groups. We're not even hearing about them much in the media because they're not needed, because the media is spinning at such a rate of distraction that people aren't bothering to look. You know, there are a few still looking and researching and doing their own due diligence, but people are just walking into it blindly to the next thing. It's crazy. Anyway, those are just a few of my thoughts and ramblings today. I hope it all makes sense, but I just think, you know, pensioners of today must have seen so many things happen like this, you know, not to the extreme of what is happening now, because it's full throttle now. Big changes are constantly happening now, and the world's going to be such a different place in 2 to 3 years' time, such a different place. And I don't know how, I'll cope with it, you know, middle 50s now, how elderly still have memories of pounds, shillings and pence. You know, the world's never been an ideal place, but idyllic compared to today. How are they going to deal with what's coming up now? You know, children will have no clue. They'll think it's always been like that and they'll just get on with it, you know. But yeah, just so bizarre. Okay, thank you for listening to me. Hope it all made sense. I'll speak to you again soon. We were meant to be doing the Start the Elderflower champagne today, but we've had such a thunderstorm this evening. I mean, it was lovely, it was beautiful, it actually cooled down. and all the plants and all the ground needs a good watering anyway because it's been so hot here. But we'll do that as soon as we can. It's next on the agenda. Thanks for coming tonight. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.